Oh man, hello world, what is up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte. We are here live at the Build studio in New York City. I got a pretty cool job. I get to talk to a lot of really cool people, but this next guest by far is truly one of my favorites. He's been on the show a couple of times. He's taught me so much. He's got this beautiful new book and a ton of amazing stuff to show us and talk about. Please make a ridiculous amount of noise. Joining us here from the National Wildlife Federation, the great David Mizejewski is here. Come on. It's David. David's back. David.
Good to be back.
So good to have you back on the show. I dodged the nature versus naturalist thing. I didn't even bring it up until right now.
Naturalist, somebody who studies nature. Naturist, somebody who likes to be naked in nature.
And I will
not
go
mutually
over that,
exclusive, but you know.
Go over that every time you come on the show until you stop getting those comments on Twitter.
Yes, well, that will never end, so.
Maybe that means you're just going to have to come on forever. That's it, David.
Yeah.
It's going to be a recurring thing. Dude, congratulations. I have been flipping through this book. It is wonderful. It is gorgeous. I'm so excited that this thing exists.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to talk to you about it. Before we jump into the book, just how are you? How's life? You were just on Ellen?
Yeah, I just did Ellen last week. I just came from doing the Wendy Williams show.
So cool.
Which is a regular gig.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's great. I have an amazing job. I've been at the National Wildlife Federation actually for, it'll be 19 years.
No.
Next month, yeah. And so I'm doing what I love. I get to talk about animals and nature and wildlife and do it on TV, do it online, and hopefully inspire everybody out there to want to get involved in wildlife conservation. Because here's a little bit of bad news. You might have heard the recent UN report, just several weeks ago came out. Approximately 1 million species are at risk of extinction on this planet right now.
Wild.
1 million species as a result of human activity.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't just sort of the normal natural extinction rate where one species every 1,000 years or 10,000 years. You know, this is a serious global problem that we're causing.
It's our fault.
Here in the US, 1/3 of all species are also at increased risk of extinction in the coming decades because of human activity. So, you know, it's a real challenge if you work in wildlife conservation because a lot of the news is bad.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wanted to do with my book is not just, you know, depress people and not just say, here's the problem, humans are bad. What I wanted to do was inspire people to get involved in a very simple, easy way that actually works to make a difference for wildlife. And it's all part of the National Wildlife Federation's Garden for Wildlife program. We've been doing this since the 70s. It's actually why I came to work at the National Wildlife Federation originally to run this program back in the year 2000.
Wow.
And it's simple. The idea is that we human beings take up so much land on this planet, you know, with our cities, our towns, our neighborhoods, our roads, our lawns, our farms, and wildlife populations are declining in part because of that. But it doesn't have to be that way. So much of the land that we occupy could actually be shared with lots and lots of wildlife species.
Yeah.
Now again, I'm not necessarily talking about, you know, bison and mountain lions living in your backyard. But I'm talking about birds and butterflies and amphibians and insects. Insects are wildlife. People don't think of them that way.
There was a particular project in here that I want to say was an insect hotel.
Yeah.
And for what it was supposed to and designed to do, it looked really cool. And it would look really neat in a backyard and not nearly as terrifying as those two words together are for me.
Yeah, exactly. An insect hotel, again, it's a project in the book, and it's basically a little structure that you build. It looks kind of like a little barn almost.
Yeah.
A roof, and it's got just...
It's very quaint.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's about that wide. You build a frame of wood, and you put in some shelves and make these little cubbies in there, and then you just stuff them with things like hollow plant stems and pine cones, bits of straw, and essentially what it becomes is a place where all sorts of little critters, insects and other animals can hide out and get some shelter. And that is a good thing. Yeah. Insects, again, are wildlife. You know, we tend to think of roaches in our house or ants in our house. The majority of insects are majorly beneficial to us and our, you know, our existence on this planet. They are the animals that keep the engines of the earth and our ecosystems running. I mean, that's not an overstatement.
Let me ask you this. I set up one of those little houses, hotels, and I get all the insects that come in. Common misconception, yes or no, that by doing that, I've attracted more insects than if I hadn't done that. Am I asking for trouble? Are they going to go to my house?
This is my point. Yeah. The presence of insects does not mean trouble.
Right.
Right? There are a few insect species that might get into your house, and I see where your question is going. And you're right. if you create habitat for wild insects, these are not insects that live in your house. Roaches and ants that get into your house, I mean, they're kind of like rats. I don't really even think of them as wildlife because they don't have natural habitat. Yeah. Their habitat is living in our houses, right? What I'm talking about are the millions of beneficial beetles and pollinators like bees and wasps and butterflies and moths and all these creatures that, again, without them out there in the landscape, pollinating flowers, allowing plants to reproduce and produce the seeds and berries and things that feed all the other animals, literally life on this planet would stop. Yeah. So it's that serious. So the point is here is that we really actually need everybody at this stage of the game to get involved, support wildlife conservation, join the National Wildlife Federation, get involved in our programs. That's the only way we're going to turn it around for these million species on the planet that are declining. We need strong wildlife legislation. We need to address climate change. These are the big macro level issues that everybody out there really needs to be involved in. But closer to home, this is wildlife conservation in your backyard. And again, there's a lot of species that can really benefit. I've been on the show talking about pollinator decline, the decline of bees. These are animals that you can help just by how you manage your own piece of the earth, your own yard, your own garden. Monarch butterflies decline by the western population. If you're west of the Rockies, over 99%.
Over 99?
Gone. The eastern population is not quite as bad, but roughly 80 to 90% in the last 20 years.
That's the number that was in my head. That's
so but if you follow the advice that I have in my book and all of what the National Wildlife Federation has been promoting through Garden for Wildlife since 1973, you can turn that around. And we can really make a huge impact on local populations of all these cool, amazing wildlife.
Did you do, since you've been there now, I didn't realize how long you were with the NWF here, but did you do the original in 2004?
Yeah.
This has always been your baby.
Yeah, this is my second edition. This book is really where it started for me with my media career. Because like I said, I started at the National Wildlife Federation in 2000. I have a degree in ecology. I'm a nature geek. I grew up running around in the woods catching frogs and teaching myself about nature and all of that stuff. So I got really into this idea of urban ecology and the idea that what we plant in our yards can be more than just pretty flowers. It can actually be wildlife habitat. And what a huge opportunity there was for, if everybody just planted a few native plants, which I'm going to talk about in a second, we instantly would have hundreds of thousands of acres of habitat that wildlife can use. So I wrote this book in 2004. It's a how-to book. It's not super wonky, but it's basically taking the science of ecology and wrapping it in this sort of wildlife gardening package. And as soon as the book came out, the TV network, Animal Planet, turned it into a makeover series. And literally the next thing I knew, I was standing in front of the TV cameras hosting TV shows.
So crazy.
So we did 47 episodes of that. It aired in 2005 to like 2009. And from there, I started doing all this media stuff. And here I am, 15 years later.
That's so funny. I would come to later find that, yes, this turned into a television show. Because while I was reading it, I was like, honestly, this is all amazing. I really want David to just go around and do this to people's gardens. Like, that would be a lot of fun to watch. And it turns out you did exactly that.
Yeah. And if anybody out there wants to see Baby Me.
Oh my God, I looked it up.
Look it up, Google Backyard Habitat. There's actually a Best of Backyard Habitat DVD that you can still get on like Amazon. Go search on that and you'll just like, I wish that I could have stopped the aging process, but that's not how reality works. But yeah, it was a really fun show. We again, ripped out people's lawns and all their non-native plants that were kind of bad and put in water features and native plants and nesting boxes. In fact, I have a whole bunch.
I'm really excited to talk to you about all that stuff.
I actually want to show you, and I want to show everybody out there just how simple it can be to restore habitat. And before we do that, though, I got to give a shout out. Today is this is the last week of Garden for Wildlife Month.
That's what I thought. This was a whole month of celebration.
And so we just designate every May as Garden for Wildlife Month to really just kind of yell from the rooftops about how important this is. One of the things that we do, if people create these wildlife habitat gardens by following the basic principles in my book, the National Wildlife Federation will recognize it as a certified wildlife habitat.
You have one of those signs,
We've got the sign down there. We've actually got a few different sign options. And again, the wildlife can't read the sign. The important thing is that people create the habitat. But if you want to join this movement that we started, again, back in 1973, get a little recognition from one of the oldest and largest conservation groups, the National Wildlife Federation, and really kind of spread the word to your neighbors, and that's the most important part. There's only one of me, right? And I can reach a lot of people by doing all these media appearances, but when people actually certify their gardens, put out that yard sign, and their neighbors see it, it's an incredible grassroots way of getting involved.
Yeah.
That counts. That is going to help spread the word that, hey, this is an important thing, and I can do it, and if I can do it, then you can do it.
Yeah.
And so with Garden for Wildlife Month, we're doing a whole big discount on the application fee and the sign fee, all of which, by the way, goes right back into our program to help us do all this stuff. Yeah. So there's only a few days left to get that discount.
Okay,
like
so you got to get moving.
Off. Yeah.
You got to get moving.
Yeah. So do it this week before the end of the month.
If it was ever going to be possible, this book makes it possible.
Yes.
We're going to look at all this amazing stuff in a moment, but just one last thing about the book is it's gorgeous. There's tons of really good photos. You guys put a lot of effort into it. I can tell you worked really hard on this thing, and it's really interesting and it's a fun read. There's a lot of cool projects in here, especially as we're getting into summertime.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of stuff in the book that makes it exciting to do this to your backyard, to do this to your patio.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted it to be practical.
Yeah.
It's a how-to book. Again, it's not super sciencey, but I wanted it to be inspirational. And so one of the things in the new edition is I went through and replaced every photo.
You did every photo?
I didn't take them personally.
No, I know, but you like took everything out and put it all.
I'm a Virgo, so I wrote it, I edited it, I picked all the pictures, I drove the editors crazy, but you know, got some great quotes on there from some of my heroes. Yeah, if you want to know how to do this, it's step by step. It covers the 4 components of habitat at each chapter: food, water, cover, places to raise young, and then the last thing is sustainable gardening practices. So just, you know, when you create this wildlife garden, you gotta maintain it naturally. Yeah. So you can put out a birdhouse and a feeder and native plants, and then if you turn around and spray pesticides everywhere, kind of defeats the point, right? So that's what sustainable gardening is all about. If you do those 5 things: food, water, cover, places to raise young, sustainable gardening, that's what will earn you the certified wildlife habitat status, and that is how the book is organized. So it'll walk you right through it.
They might be doing that already.
So I'll tell you this. This does not mean you have to rip up your entire yard. It doesn't mean you have to have $1 billion to do this. It doesn't mean that you have to totally start from scratch. In the book is a checklist of all the different ways you can provide all of those different habitat components. What I recommend people do is start there. Yeah. Just go through that checklist and figure out what you already got. You might already have the basics and qualify to be certified.
You're one of them badass sons.
Exactly. So that's what it's all about.
The sign is very nice, but I think I'm overselling it compared to all the really cool things that are over here. Well, let's take, if you want, would you mind showing me some of the stuff that we got here really quick? I want to take a look at some of these things.
The most important thing that people can do if you want to help out wildlife and restore habitat for them is plant native plants.
Okay.
Now, this is why a wildlife group has a garden program, right? Because plants are the foundation of habitat for all wildlife. And if you read the book, I say that like literally at every other chapter because it's that important. And here's how plants provide habitat for wildlife. They provide the food, they provide the cover, they provide the places to raise young. So this is an awesome plant. It's called Pawpaw.
I was going to say, you're skipping that first really hard to pronounce word.
Yeah, we won't even read the Latin name. But yeah, Pawpaw is a native understory tree. It naturally grows in the woods throughout the eastern U.S.
Cool.
It's the only member of its plant group that is actually found in temperate zones. All the rest of them are in tropical areas. And so they kind of had these giant tropical looking leaves. They get these really awesome fruits that are about this big called pawpaws.
Nice.
And there's cool green color. They taste like tropical fruit. And they're important food for animals like possums, which are awesome. Possums, people think they're gross. They think they're big rats. We brought a possum on the last time I was here. It was a little feisty.
He was a little intense, but seemed like a nice enough possum.
Really important animals out there.
Go.
So they love, they'll feed on that. But this plant has another cool food story and also a places to raise young story. So caterpillars of butterflies and moths can only feed on the leaves of a certain number of plants that they have co-evolved with. If they try to eat the leaves of another plant, they'll die. So some butterflies only have one plant that they can eat. And that is the case for the zebra swallowtail butterfly. Really cool, fairly big butterfly. It's kind of like a palish yellow, almost white, with black stripes, hence the name, right? Just like this is the only member of its plant family that's found in temperate areas, same thing with the zebra swallowtail. All the other members that are closely related to it are all tropical species. So again, you begin to see how these animals and plants interact with each other. If this plant is not out there in the landscape, zebra swallowtail butterflies go
No
away,
way.
right? So that's how important this is. So this is a tree. Again, it's going to grow into a medium-sized tree. It'll grow suckers and have a whole form kind of a patch.
What's the maintenance like on something like this?
Nothing. You
So I
plant
just
it.
put it in
One
the
of
yard?
the best things about native plants is that they're evolved to your local environment. So the soil types,
That's
the
perfect.
rainfall, you don't have to spray these. You don't have to water them. Nothing. Let them do their thing because they belong here. That's the whole idea. They evolved here. And so,
I will find a way to murder this tree, not intentionally. To be clear, that sounds terrible. I don't want the tree to die. I'm just saying I will try my best.
yeah,
It will die.
Some people have black thumbs. You have to have a positive attitude.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's move on. What do we got next?
I will say this: these plants are all they're from a brand called American Beauties that the National Wildlife Federation helped launch.
Okay.
They're all native plants, and the plant tags will tell you everything you need to know to keep them alive. So you can Google that, American Beauties native plants, and you'll learn a whole bunch of stuff. So this plant, I want you to take a sniff of, smell those flowers.
Whoa, what is that?
Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So this is a plant called Itea or Virginia sweet spire. It's a shrub.
I'm allergic to that. No, I'm not. I'm just kidding.
I was going to say.
I'm totally kidding.
Here's
break into hives.
Let me bust a little myth
Yeah,
here.
go for it.
If you see a plant with big showy blooms like this,
Yeah.
chances are it's not causing your allergies.
Got it.
And here's why.
Why, yeah.
Plants that have big showy blooms evolved these to attract animal pollinators. So this Virginia sweet spire plant is a great nectar plant for bees and butterflies. It's going to provide food to them that way. But the reason that the plant evolved these pretty flowers was to lure that animal in here. The animal's going to feed on the nectar, get coated in pollen, then fly over to the next plant, leave some of that pollen and fertilize it. So what does that mean? It means that the pollen grains of plants with showy blooms don't float through the air. They're designed to stick to the body of those insects that are going to move them from plant to plant. So it's trees like pine trees that don't have a showy flower, grasses that don't have a showy flower that generally are causing our allergies because their pollen blows through the air. Now, yes, if you stick this up your nose and inhale,
Well, I
you're gonna
did. I mean, not
sneeze.
for nothing, David. I did just put my entire face in the middle of this plant. I cupped the flowers and inhaled deeply, so
You'll
I'm
have
at
to
a
report
disadvantage.
back and
Yeah,
tell me
I'll let you know
that
how
went.
I handle it.
So again, great
So-
nectar plant, and I like this because it's a shrub.
Yeah.
If you
Is
have
this
a
as big as
yard,
it gets? Is this?
it'll get a little bit
Little
bigger
bigger,
than this, yeah. But I mean, shrubs are kind of the workhorses in the garden. They're woody plants, just like the tree. So there's going to be a stem there. There's going to be structure there. It's going to have these beautiful blooms in the summer. It gets a beautiful reddish leaf in the fall into the winter.
Cool.
So it's got all seasons of interest from a landscape point of view. And it's a great illustration of the fact that people think, oh, native plants, that must mean weeds. No. Does this look like a weed to you? It's a beautiful, ornamental, beautiful shrub that can fit in. Again, this is an Eastern native. You want to find native plants local to your area because they're different all over the country. But anyway, so shrubs are great. And I've got a couple more plants up here. This one up in front, we don't necessarily need to go up here unless you want to. But this one is a kind of milkweed. So
Let's see, Nick.
yeah,
Let's see.
so this is butterfly milkweed. Now milkweed is the only caterpillar host plant for the monarch butterfly that I was talking about earlier that has really plummeted in population. And so what we're really trying to do is get as many people out there across America planting more milkweed because this is the only thing that those caterpillars can eat. And if the butterflies don't have it, again, their population crashes. So this one happens to be, it's called butterfly weed or butterfly milkweed. It gets an orange flower, which by the way is a good nectar source for butterflies and adult bees, or adult butterflies and bees. But there's dozens of different native milkweed species. I grow swamp milkweed in my yard in Washington, D.C. Beautiful, ornamental, pinkish white flowers. It smells like candy.
If I go someplace and I ask to purchase butterfly wheat,
Yeah.
will I be able, is that the right thing to ask for?
Ask for butterfly wheat or butterfly milkweed. And look, we're making a joke about this, but it's true. One of the reasons why this plant and this group of plants has been wiped out is because it has weed in the name.
Get the hell out of
And
here.
we're
Is that
not,
seriously it? That's
yeah,
like,
it has a PR problem, right? Gardeners are like, it's a weed, I don't want it.
we got to turn this ship around, buddy.
Totally. Exactly, yeah. So I mean, and again, this is a beautiful plant. It's going to get these bright orange flowers. Again, most of the milkweeds have purple or pink flowers. Some of them are white. Every region in this country has at least a couple different native species. So again, if you're in the eastern half of the country, I would plant something like swamp milkweed.
Yeah.
It's cultivated, so a lot of nurseries carry it. If you're out west, I would look for like narrow leaf milkweed or showy milkweed.
Showy milkweed.
Showy milkweed. And again, you can plant this in your yard. Or, and this is also really important, you don't even need a yard to do this. You know, we're in Manhattan. If you have a rooftop, a balcony, a little deck, the little patch under your tree out front, you can do this, right? You don't have to have a yard. You don't have to be in suburbia in order to plant something and make the space a little bit better for
Can I ask a crazy question, though? If I plant this and I have an apartment, I'm 5 floors up.
Yeah.
What impact could I possibly be having on the? Are they making it all the way up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when we did the Backyard Habitat Animal Planet series, we did a whole episode on rooftop gardens, and we were in Chicago. And like you, I was a little skeptical of this. Yeah. 13 stories up, I was like, what's really going to show up there? I was blown away, frankly. I mean, animals with wings can fly, and they will go that high up. This place was teeming with butterflies and dragonflies and beetles, all sorts of birds, 13 stories up.
That's really
cool.
So,
you know, it works.
Yeah, so it works.
Yeah, so what else
we got here?
I want to show you.
Yeah.
So native plants, that's really, really important. That's the backbone. That's going to provide most of the habitat. Throw in a bird bath, and that's the 4 components of habitat. Now, you can supplement all that with things like bird feeders.
That's what that is.
So yeah, this is not just a garden ornament.
Yeah.
It is, right? I mean, it's kind of funky looking. This is just one kind of bird feeder. We call it a tube feeder, right? You can see why, because it's tube shaped. This one has tiny little holes because it's designed to hold the tiny little thistle or Niger seeds, we call them, that like animals like finches like to eat. So like on the front cover of my book, that's a goldfinch. That's the kind of bird that will come and feed at this kind of feeder. And it's just pretty simple, you know?
Are you a marketing genius? You know, the Goldfinch trailer just dropped today. I'm just putting that out there. I don't want to date this episode, but that's a big deal.
I know, I didn't know that.
You timed it out perfectly.
I didn't know that. I was just trying to shamelessly promote my book, so.
No shame.
So yeah, you just pop the top off, you fill it with seeds, and that's pretty much it. The only thing you have to do with feeders is you got to keep them clean because they can spread disease. And remember that feeders are not habitat. Okay?
How do you keep them clean? What's the easiest way to do it?
Well, when the birds have eaten all the seeds, I would get a hose, just rinse it out. You can get like a 5-gallon bucket, soak it in water with a little bit of vinegar. You just want to make sure that you get any crud out of the bottom because it can actually, again, spread disease. But yeah, feeders aren't habitat. Only a handful of bird species will actually eat out of a feeder. So focus on feeding with nectar and fruit and berries and pollen and things like that. And that's how you're going to basically make the base of the food chain. That other plant down there is not blooming yet, but it's one of the rudbeckias, which are the black-eyed Susans. And you can see on the plant tag here, that's what it's going to look like. Again, just point being beautiful, ornamental. That is going to have, again, nectar and pollen for butterflies and bees and other pollinators. And then when these flowers get pollinated by those insects, they're going to form seeds that the birds are going to eat. So again, you begin to see how it's all connected.
Circle of life.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, we joke about it, but it's totally, that's what it's all about. I have another kind of feeder here, and I'm going to need your help.
You got it. What do you need?
So I want you to actually hold this.
Can do.
This is a hummingbird feeder, okay? So hummingbirds feed on flower nectar, right? So what this is going to do, what we're going to do, it's a little glass jar. It's red because the plants that hummingbirds evolve to feed out of oftentimes are red, okay? Brilliant. So this is the base.
Okay.
I've got 4 cups of water in there. Do you want to pop the lid off there?
There we are.
This is 1 cup of plain white sugar, okay? Not healthy for people, but it's what hummingbirds...
Delicious, though.
It is delicious. It's what hummingbirds, it's what's in flower nectar. Let's see if I can do this without spilling it all.
So far, so good.
Yeah, not honey. Honey, when it's mixed with water, can spoil easily. Not artificial sweetener. I'm
going to shuck and jive. You going to follow me? Up.
All right.
Round of applause for David pouring that sugar. Come on.
I actually
nailed it.
I actually meant for you to take the whole thing off, but so I could just dump it in. But you know.
I like to keep you on your toes, David.
All right. Hold that down and give it a little shake.
Such an idiot. I'm sorry.
Just to swirl that off.
As you're doing, I'm looking at it. I'm like, I probably could have helped him out with this.
You know, I thought it was a challenge. I did it, right? So anyway, yeah, you want to use plain white sugar, not brown sugar, not honey, not artificial sweetener. Yeah. And I do feel the need to say that because I still get people asking, like, can I put like my Splenda in there or my, you know?
Really?
Yeah, well, because we're taught that sugar is bad for us, and it is, but hummingbirds need it to survive. Try flapping your wings, you know, 500 times a second, and you need all of that energy that the sugar is going to provide. So when this is all dissolved, and if you were doing it at home, I would say, put it on the stovetop, heat the water, dissolve it. Now, go ahead, and that's it. That's all you need to do. Right. It's 4 parts water to 1 part white sugar, dissolved. And we're going to fill this into the feeder, just like that. That's good.
Great.
Now
somebody come on up and taste this and see if you were a hummingbird, would you?
It's pretty much.
Is that not what we're gonna do?
No, we're not going to do that.
All right,
I mean,
never mind.
you could.
Back in your seats.
You could. No, so what you want to do with that is
Yes.
put that in the fridge. That'll last in the fridge for a week or so. So you can refill the feeder, because once the hummingbirds find it, they are going to come and they're going to completely devour all of this nectar.
Question.
And so
you ever wake up in the middle of the night, take a drink of this by accident, you forget it's in your fridge?
I mean, you could. It's just like a sugar water.
It's like Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like Kool-Aid. It just doesn't have a flavor. So it's simple as that. You hang this up, and again, you want to keep it clean. For this, if the hummingbirds don't drink the nectar within a few days, especially in the heat of summer, you want to empty it, wash it out, refill it. This is a model that you can put in your dishwasher.
Oh,
you
great.
don't need the dye to be red. We don't know if the dye is actually really going to hurt the bird, so sometimes you can buy commercially made hummingbird nectar and it's dyed red.
Huh.
And it's approved for human consumption, but no one really knows how much it's going to hurt the bird. So I would just not do that at all. And again, if the feeder's red, it simulates the natural flowers.
enough.
Again,
It works.
Plant the native plants that have red flowers that the hummingbirds are going to come to naturally, but you can supplement with something.
With one of
like
those.
this. Yeah. So, oh, and I forgot this neat little plant here.
Yeah, what's that guy?
This is just plain old garden zinnia. Now, this is not a native plant, but I brought it because even though native plants are best, even if you just plant, some of our common annual, flowers that these are going to die off in the winter, you can get a 6-pack like this at any nursery for just a few bucks. If you're on a budget, if all you have is a container on your balcony or on your rooftop or whatever, this is a good nectar plant. And the zinnias come in all different colors. Butterflies and bees will come to this. So it's an easy, simple, inexpensive way to plant something for wildlife. So
Cool.
If you
Garden zinnias.
Yeah, zinnias. Yeah.
Oh, just zinnias?
Zinnias. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. You can buy the little seed packets for them. You can buy them in the nursery. So, all right, I got a few other things that I want to
Couple of things, yeah.
show you guys.
Because I want to get some questions from the audience as well.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite pieces of equipment is on this stage. So let's keep going.
The bat house?
Yeah.
All right, let's dive
Did you
into
bring the
bat house.
bats this time? Did you?
I did not bring the bats.
Thank the Lord.
Yeah, bats would be a little bit too difficult. So why don't we move this pawpaw?
Yeah,
out
I'll
of
get
the
this
way
guy
here.
out of here. You go ahead.
So, bat houses. Okay, bats naturally roost at night up in trees. Some species will be in caves and things like that. But bats are declining. There's something called white nose syndrome that's wiping out millions and millions of bats right now in America.
Jeez.
And so they really need a boost as much as help as we can give them. And we're trashing their habitat and the whole story. So again, plant native plants, they're gonna support the insects that the bats are eating. You can also put out a bat house.
Yeah.
Now most bat houses that you're gonna find for sale are garbage. Don't buy them.
Don't I know it?
Yeah.
So hard to find a quality bat house in
telling you.
Manhattan. I'm telling you, Dave.
So, so what you want if you're going to get a bat house is that you want it to be big. So at least 18 to 24 inches tall, at least 18 inches wide. The bigger, the better in the case of bat houses. Now it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but if you can see the inside of that, let's see.
Our jib is trying.
Yeah, you can see the slats in here.
Yeah.
This has multiple chambers. Each one of those slats forms a chamber. So there's one, there's two, there's three in this one. Can you see it? Yeah, there we go.
There we are.
Now, they're only, an inch or so apart. That's what bats want. They want to slide up into that really tight spot.
How many get in here?
Hundreds.
Into this box,
Yes,
hundreds of bats.
into this box, exactly.
That's terrifying.
Well, no, it's or awesome.
No, it is. I'm sorry. I know. I know that it's good, and I know we need to help them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to say terrifying. However, if I did not know that, I bought one of these. I'm like, honey, we're gonna get a couple of bats in the bat house, and I go out one night, there's hundreds of them.
Hundreds of them, and that's awesome because bats are out there eating insects, and
Yes.
the insects are important, but they need to check on their population. So yes, some bat species do eat mosquitoes, but most bat species are eating things like moths and beetles that are, many of which are agricultural pests. So they're really kind of earning their keep by helping keeping those pests under control. So yeah, you want to mount this not in a tree, even though bats naturally will roost in trees at night.
Okay.
They don't like bat houses and trees, they won't use them.
So what, like right next to the front door? Is that where I put it?
I wouldn't do that because the bottom's open and they poop. And so,
geez.
yeah. So you want to put it somewhere where that's not going to be an issue. But it has to be high up. So it has to be at least 12 feet off the ground. Most bat species can't take off from the ground like a bird.
Really?
So they don't want to be too close to the ground. They kind of drop out, open their wings, and fly away. So if it's too low, they also won't move in. So with a bat house, good design, big, multiple chambers. You want to hang it at least 12 to 15 feet off the ground, not in a tree. The best place, honestly, is on the side of a building. If you don't have a building handy, you could mount it on a tall pole. You know, put a little concrete down on the ground, that kind of thing. But yeah, they will work if the conditions are right and the bats find them. And not only is this a place of cover, which is one of those habitat components, oftentimes female bats will move into a bat house as a maternal colony, and they'll have all the little baby bats.
Little baby
and
bats.
you'll be helping the
I'm on
future
board
of the
for
bat
that.
population. Yeah, so it's pretty neat.
How many baby bats do you usually have, though? Don't say hundreds.
If there's hundreds of female bats in here, right?
All right, fine.
So.
It's 100 bats. Kate, do I have questions in the room? Because we've got, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So let's do the first one. I think is going to be a Twitter question. So let's get to that.
Okay.
And then, David, if there's some more stuff before we get out, if there's time,
Yeah.
if like you got a favorite thing here. But let's do this up real quick. Philip Louie. Oh, hello, Philip. He says, at D. Mizejewski, what's the strangest encounter you experienced in your own backyard, and how did you react to it? Yeah, what is your hundreds of bats, sir?
Let's see. Strangest. It's a tough question for me to answer because I don't think any of it's strange. Like when I see crazy stuff in my yard, I'm like, oh, this is cool. It's exactly what I want. I'll probably say this. So I live in Washington, D.C., right in the middle of the city. I've got a city row house, and I, for the last few years, have had Carolina mantids in my yard. Now, my entire planted yard is about, 6 feet wide by about 17 feet long. It's not much bigger than this stage. And it's, typical, city area. And so to find this native mantid species, so think of a praying mantis, which is actually a European species, or a Chinese mantid, which are what we think of when we think of these animals, these big green,
Totally.
The Carolina mantid is much smaller. Sometimes it's kind of camouflage gray. It's got a much fatter abdomen. Native across most of the U.S., especially the eastern part, and it's being wiped out from those other two non-native mantid
That was gonna be my follow-up. I was like, if that's the native, why do I know the green?
Because
the other
we
ones so much more?
introduced all these other ones for pest control and everything, and then they ended up eating all the native insects.
It's always the worst idea.
So it's strange to me that I saw that because I didn't really do much other than plant some natives, and it showed up. And that's really the message here. If you plant it, they will come.
They will come, yeah.
So yeah, but
Any shots of your garden in the book? Like close-ups?
Actually, many of the shots in the book are pictures of my yards and gardens over the years.
No way, really?
Yeah.
That's very cool.
So yeah.
Awesome. That was a great question. Thank you, Philip. Kate, how many do I have in the room? I've got 2 in the room. Perfect. First one, microphone, go for it, right in the front.
Hi, David.
Hey.
So, as an animal lover, how can I get involved physically on a personal level, and maybe meet and work with some of the animals and the other animals that you work with?
Well, so I do a lot of media appearances with animals. If you want to work with actual wildlife, there's a couple routes that I would recommend. Study biology, get into field science. And people who do that actually go out into the wild. They're doing, camera traps. They're doing tagging. You're actually getting your hands on real wild animals and helping us understand their behavior and conserve them. The other route that you can go is sort of the zoological route. And so get involved with, again, studying biology and zoology and things like that. And working with animals that are under human care in accredited zoos is a really great way. On a daily basis, you'll get to work with them. And having been a zookeeper myself, I just want to warn you that it's not all snuggles and hugs, it's mostly scooping poop. So as long as you're cool with that, you do get to have, pretty incredible experiences with animals that way, yeah.
What zoo were you at again? I forget.
I worked at a tiny little zoo in Virginia when I first moved to Washington, D.C.
Oh, man.
That doesn't even exist anymore. But,
no way.
I worked with a lot of, I was a keeper and an educator. Yeah. And so I mostly scoop poop and all that good stuff. But I work with a wide range of different zoological institutions when I bring animals out for TV. Animal ambassadors, we call them, and it's amazing. But it's a big responsibility to care for animals in captivity, and so it's important to work with really great folks that are committed to conservation, and that's who I work with. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, do I have any more? I think I have one more, right? One more question. Let's go for it, all the way in the back.
Hi. I was wondering if you have any tips for keeping squirrels away from the bird feeders.
Oh. I wish I did. I would be a millionaire if I had figured out a way to keep squirrels out of bird feeders. I mean, here's the thing, is that this is an available food source. And if you put an available food source out there, wildlife are going to take advantage of it. And it's hard to, sort of feed some kinds of wildlife and not others. This is another reason why feeders are okay as a supplement, but you don't want to only just have feeders out there. If you have natural habitat, the birds will have plenty to eat. and you don't have to worry about squirrels raiding your feeders. What I would say is you can look into getting a squirrel-proof feeder, and there's a lot of different designs. Usually they're a little pricey, but some of them have cages around them. Some of them are weighted so that when a bird lands on the perch, birds are so light that it doesn't do anything. But if something as heavy as a squirrel lands on it, it pulls the perch down and closes the port where the seed is, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's interesting.
So you can try something like that. But yeah, if you're putting out feeders, you're almost inevitably gonna be feeding squirrels too. Yeah.
You know what you gotta do? You gotta get the one, look for this, it's the shape of a giant squirrel head. You ever see this? So when the squirrel goes in it, he's getting the food anyway, but it looks hilarious. So that's the one you gotta get.
Yeah, sometimes if you can't beat them, join them. Just feed them.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your question. That's a real bird feeder. Look that thing up. What I wanted to ask you real quick before we get out of here, because I was thinking about you can't really avoid when wildlife shows up for you put out food for one thing. What are raccoons bringing to the table other than being adorable?
So thank you for that, and not saying that they're trash pandas. It's like my pet peeve. Don't say that around me. So here's the thing: raccoons are awesome. They are incredible. I was just at the top. I was sharing all the depressing news about 1 million species about to go extinct on this planet. And
not raccoons.
And here's an animal that no matter how badly we have trashed this planet and destroyed habitat, is not only able to survive, but they're like us. Their population is growing.
Oh,
there
gosh.
are more raccoons in North America, which is where they're native, than there ever were pre-European colonization of this country. They have figured out how to thrive even when we trash the planet. And I think that sometimes they can be annoying. They can get into our trash cans, get into our attic or whatever, but that's pretty awesome. That should be celebrated, right? These guys are smart. They're completely adaptable. They can figure out how to eat whatever we put out there, again, including sometimes our trash, but hey, it's food, right? And again, I think that should be celebrated. The other reason I love raccoons is that Ranger Rick is the National Wildlife Federation mascot ambassador for over 50 years. Some of you guys out there might have grown up reading Ranger Rick magazine. I did. And so, we have a soft place in our heart for Ranger Rick. He's actually even on our logo.
He's on the
right
logo,
here.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the key though, with all wildlife, whether it's a raccoon or a squirrel or frankly, a songbird, is these are not pets. These are wild animals. Respect them as wild animals. As long as you never try to, pet them or cuddle them or touch them or hand feed them or things like that, then let them be wildlife, and they're going to do their thing. They're not going to, get into any trouble as far as interaction with people goes.
For sure.
Yeah.
David, regrettably, we're running out of time. I gotta let you go. I think we got to everything.
Yeah. The only other thing was
what do you got left?
I have a few nesting boxes. Same with the bat house. You want to make sure you get a good design, a good model. I won't go into the details of that because they're all in the book.
I was going to say, anything we missed is in the book.
Yeah.
How many hundreds of bats fit in there?
This is a wren house. This would be one pair of wrens.
I can do that.
Yeah, you can
all
do
right,
that.
I'm on board for that. I want to thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us, David.
Absolutely.
It is always so cool to have you here. You are so freaking smart. And you're doing a lot of amazing work and inspiring a lot of people in the process. This book is gorgeous. You can get it everywhere you get books, people. That should be obvious. The National Wildlife Catalog has it, Barnes & Noble, your local bookstore, Amazon. If they sell books, you're going to find this. You should get a copy of it. Anything else we should tell people about?
Just to repeat, that all the sales of the book go right back into our program to help us protect wildlife. So
win-win.
Yeah, win-win.
That's perfect. David, I cannot wait for you to come back. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody make some noise.
Thanks for having me.
Great David Mizejewski right here. Thank you, sir.